Zadorov sticking up for Elias Pettersson late in Sunday's game when it was kind of in garbage time. It's in that Darnell Nurse time when you're always watching for him to do something stupid. Reese
Darnell Nurse
Johnson,
time. I love that.
I call it Darnell Nurse time. When you're down, you're frustrated, and you're about to do something stupid, it's Darnell Nurse time. That's Darnell Nurse's time to shine. Reese Johnson, I don't even want to use the term takes a run at Elias Pettersson because Elias Pettersson, he called it a clean hit. It was a clean hit, but it was still a hit on a star player, and it sent him hard into the boards, sent him down to the ice. So Zadorov gets the instigator penalty, skates over to Reese Johnson, and drops the gloves with Reese Johnson. Now, when the Zadorov trade happened, Harmon, I'm sure you remember this. We were asking people what they thought of Nikita Zadorov in Calgary, and something that Ryan Pike, our managing editor over at Flames Nation, told me was not a good fighter, but he will drop the gloves. And I think that was a really good example of that because he's willing to drop the gloves. And hey, I don't care if you're not a good fighter. You're still a ginormous human being and you've still got bear paws for hands. And those are coming swinging at a dude's face. I don't care if you're the best fighter or not. Reese Johnson still went down to the ice. How could he not? He had Nikita Zadorov coming at him. And I really liked that from Nikita Zadorov, and I saw a few different people talking about it today about, oh, do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? I love it. I think you need to have a guy like that on your blue line, and I think what matters more than if you or I even like it or anybody for that matter is this quote, and we'll bring it up here, Grady. This quote from Elias Pettersson post game about that play. This coming to us courtesy of our pal Ian McIntyre. This is what PD had to say about the hit. He said, "I appreciate it so much. I don't mind a good hit, but it just shows he's going to back me up no matter what. It shows that you're playing for each other." If that isn't a cry for help, that this dude has not had this on his team ever since he's been a Canuck, I don't know what is. I don't know how anybody looks at that quote and thinks otherwise, or how anybody looks at that play and that quote together and has any take other than it is awesome that Nikita Zadorov did that for Elias Pettersson, that he did that in that game. Look, I understand the timing aspect, and people are saying, rightfully so, if the Blackhawks come back and score on the power play and they come back and, win that game or tie it up, we're having a very different conversation. And sure, maybe we are, but we're also having a conversation about defensive breakdowns and all that sort of stuff. So all in all, I really liked that from Nikita Zadorov, and I thought it was a really nice kind of message for him to send, not only to, the rest of the league and the Blackhawks and whoever, but mostly to his teammates, because as Elias Pettersson said in that quote, it shows that they're playing for each other, which is something that this team, let's be honest, just hasn't done for years.
Yeah, I loved it. And my initial thought as soon as it happened, even when he got the instigator, even after Chicago made it 4-3, I thought, I don't care if the Blackhawks come back and win this game and we're talking about a Canucks, even a regulation loss, I will never pin that on Nikita Zadorov, because to me, this is a long 82-game season, and that type of camaraderie, sticking up for each other, that is more important than a Sunday afternoon game against the Chicago Blackhawks when you already know that you're in a position where you're going to make the playoffs. And honestly, if you're a team that can't kill off a penalty that was to sort of stand up for a teammate, when you have a 2-goal advantage against Chicago, then you don't deserve to win that game anyway, in my opinion. So I loved it. And it is funny because, like in Toronto, for example, that sort of thing happens. And even though they have guys like Ryan Reeves and whoever, it becomes soap opera in Leafs Nation, where for a whole week they're talking about, oh, the lack of response. And certainly we've had those instances in the past with the Canucks as well. So it's just great to sort of, not that there would have been storylines coming out of it if nobody had, because it's not like Pettersson got hurt or that it was overly dirty. But and I don't even think, as a matter of fact, that it's, oh, if you stick up for your teammates after a fight, that your opposition is less likely to take runs at your star players. Because I just think if somebody wants to be physical, they're going to be physical. They're not going to be worried that, oh no, they got Nikita Zadorov on the blue line, he's going to come after me. But it's just more for what it does internally for your own group and showing that you've got each other's backs. And for Zadorov, who's still relatively new to the team, it's an amazing way to endear himself, feel comfortable. And so, yeah, I loved it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I honestly I couldn't have said it better myself. I find myself now wondering what it's going to take to extend Nikita Zadorov, and I think that's something I want to pose to the chat. We don't have to answer it right now, Harmon, because I know it's kind of a bigger picture question. But as we move toward the anyone else segment, I'm curious what people in the chat think they'd be comfortable extending Nikita Zadorov on a contract. He's gonna be 29 when he gets that new contract. He's 28 right now. What would you be comfortable when it comes to a Nikita Zadorov extension? Harmon, I'll ask you that later in our anyone else, but we have a lot of interaction. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in on this Monday afternoon. A lot of interaction in the YouTube live chat. People giving their instant reaction to my question there. Eternal Render, who also sent us a little congratulations on hitting 3,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So thanks again to everybody for that. Eternal Reader said 5.75 million at 5 years. I think that's a little high for Nikita Zadorov. I would look more at Carson Soucy's contract, kind of as a comparable if I were the Canucks going into contract negotiations with AGM Dan Milstein. Just because they kind of profile similarly, right? Like two big left shot guys who have played bottom 6 minutes mostly when they've had success in bottom 6 minutes, and maybe struggled a little bit when they've moved up to top 4 minutes. But in free agency, the Canucks went out and got Soucy and basically said, like, yeah, he's played bottom pair minutes, but we think he can play top 4 minutes at the NHL level and he can be successful at it. So I would look at that as a comparable. Like, I think if I was going in to extend Nikita Zadorov, I think the number that I immediately come to, and Jeremy Lee threw out 3 years for 4 to 5 mil. I think the highest I would go with Zadorov is 3 years, maybe 4, maybe 4.5 is probably the highest I would go on a Zadorov extension. But what do you think here, Harmon?
Yeah, to me, it's too early to sort of project what he might make, or if it even makes sense to extend him, because you like, first of all, it's only been less than, I think it's been less, still been less than maybe around 10 games or so that we've
Mhm.
had Zadorov. Um, we also want to see how it looks with Soucy in the lineup, and just your overall, again, the point I made earlier, what's your confidence level in at least one of them being able to hold down a top four role during your team's cup contention window? Because that's essentially the bet if you're going to commit a combined, 6 to 7 million to two left shot defensemen that are basically playing or are on a talent level pretty similar. So you have to be sort of aware of that, especially because if you head into the offseason and big picture, you're thinking about, well, long term, our biggest need is we'd love to add another true high end defenseman, like a number 2, 3 type, somebody who's a clear tier above the sort of Zadorov, Soucy, Cole type of tier. You might want to have the flexibility of, hey, if a left shot defender of that profile becomes available, well, you don't want to all of a sudden be limited in terms of going after that guy because you already extended Zadorov and you also already have Soucy, so you have too many left shot defensemen, right? And all of a sudden now that player has to be a right shot defenseman in terms of another high end blue liner. Because as we know, right shot defenders are even rarer and tougher to find and acquire than left shot types. And so you've got to weigh those possibilities as well. And you've kind of got to project the market and look at, this is what the Canucks should do as well, is they should not only look at the pending UFAs, but also Hronek type situations um, for the next sort of 18 months, where you're looking at teams that might end up in a similar spot where they have a good player, but maybe it's not a long-term fit because they are due for another big extension that the team either might not afford or might not want to pay. And look at, okay, how many of those are left shot defensemen? How many of those are right shot defensemen? How many of those could be potential targets down the road? And figure out accordingly, like, okay, is there a lefty target we might like better? Because this blue line has been functioning well recently, but I don't think it's at the level of a contender. And so for that reason, I just, even today, if you were to throw me the Soucy contract, like, I would be thinking hard and long about, okay, like, is this actually a fit? Even though I've liked what he's brought to the table right now.
You're basically locking in two guys right behind Quinn Hughes, right on your left side. And that's the other thing. Can one of these guys play the right side? Because when Susie comes back, you're going to have four lefties in the lineup. So it's going to be very interesting to see, and a lot of really good interaction during this Anyone Else segment in the YouTube live chat. I want to get to them all, but this one from Jesse C. Personally, I don't see Zadorov as significantly better than Susie, so maybe a little more than him because he's slightly or because of the slightly extra physicality, but both are a number 5 defenseman. To me, this is very interesting. Very interesting. People have mixed takes on Nikita Zadorov, but one thing that people can kind of agree on is that the defense has looked better since he's arrived, and Tyler Myers has looked better since Nikita Zadorov has arrived.
Canucks Conversation with Harmon and Quads every weekday at 2 p.m. Be sure to check it out on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. And if you missed it, go check it out on your favorite podcast catcher app.